Historical legal codes are the oldest and strangest user agreements in the world. No one reads the fine print. And if you do, there are so many crazy clauses that you wonder how humanity has survived to this day. We have prepared a ranking of 50 of the most absurd, funny, and frightening laws ever applied. From mandatory kidnappings to the death penalty for bad poetry. By the end of this review, you will feel better about your government, or at least become a little less irritated. It was a routine ritual that the groom had to maintain for years. Secondly, in ancient Athens, there was a law that made family dinners incredibly awkward. If a man died without male heirs, his daughter was obliged to marry the closest male relative, often an uncle or cousin. It was not about love. The purpose of such a marriage was to keep family property and wealth within one lineage. The daughter, called an epikuro, was more of a vessel for passing on the inheritance. Imagine that your father died, and your inheritance is tied to a husband you have known since childhood by law. In the 14th century in France, animals could be brought to court. One of the most famous cases involved a pig arrested for attacking a child. The pig was sentenced to hanging in the main square, dressed in human clothes for the occasion. If you think your state regulates substances strangely, that's not all. Let's consider the Ottoman Sultan Murad IV. In the 17th century, he completely banned coffee. In his opinion, coffee houses were hotbeds of political and social discontent. The punishment was not limited to a fine or warning. The first person caught with a cup of coffee was beaten. Upon the second offense, the person was put in a leather sack and thrown into the Bosphorus. This is a truly serious attitude towards caffeine addiction. A severe punishment for the simple desire to drink a cup of coffee, reflecting the strictness of the Sultan. From 1881 to 1974, Chicago had so-called ugly laws. These regulations prohibited people with diseases or disabilities from appearing in public. The law forbade those with visible defects from appearing in society, so as not to offend or disturb healthy citizens. It was a cruel social policy. It was a law that treated people as aesthetic problems to be hidden, rather than as full members of society. In ancient Rome, there was the principle of patria potestas, the power of the head of the family, giving him absolute control over the life and death of his children. In ancient Rome, the father had so much power that he could legally sell his son into slavery. But there was a strange loophole in the law. If the son sold into slavery managed to gain freedom, he returned under the father's authority. But the law allowed this only 3 times. After the third sale into slavery, the son became legally free from the father forever. A terrible system with an unusual rule. 3 violations. Exit. In medieval England, there was a position called the aliconer, which was real and legally mandatory. Their task was to check the quality of beer. How did they do it? They poured beer onto a wooden bench and sat on it wearing leather pants. If the pants stuck, the sugar content was too high. If the pants stuck when trying to stand up, the batch of beer was considered low quality. King Edward III introduced laws regulating everything, including shoe length. Ordinary people were forbidden to wear shoes with toes longer than 15 centimeters. There were no restrictions for the nobility. One of the earliest known copyright court decisions dates back to the 6th century in Ireland and sounds like a proverb. Saint Columba secretly copied a valuable book of Psalms from his former teacher, Saint Finian. The dispute reached the Supreme King, Maxerbel. After hearing the case, he made a simple and fair decision. The verdict stated, To each cow, its calf; to each book, its copy. The copy belonged to the owner of the original. This decision established a legal precedent for intellectual property more than 1,000 years before the invention of the printing press. In an ancient Greek city known as the City of Thieves, there was a law that regulated artists' rights. In the 16th century, if a sculptor or artist created a public artwork, it had to be a perfect and idealized representation of its subject. If city officials considered the work worse than the original, the artist was required to pay a huge fine. But even if the work was better than the original, a fine was still imposed. Winning was impossible because the law demanded perfection, and any deviation was punished. Artists lived under constant pressure and strict control. In the 16th century in England, King Henry VIII introduced a beard tax, that is, a fee for having facial hair. The tax was progressive. A common person paid a little, while a high-ranking noble paid significantly more for the right to wear a beard. The law served not only to collect money but also to maintain the social hierarchy, forcing everyone to know their place, even by the hair on their chin. Compared to this, the modern, clean-shaven corporate style seems much less oppressive and strict. In medieval Germany, for several centuries, the law allowed married couples to peacefully resolve their conflicts and disputes. In the past, disputes were settled by combat in a duel, but it was an unusual duel. The man was placed waist-deep in a pit, with one hand tied behind his back. The woman could move freely around the edge of the pit and was armed with a pouch containing 3 stones. The man held a club. The duel lasted until someone surrendered. This is probably the only historical legal process that sounds like it was invented by the characters of Looney Tunes cartoons. In the Massachusetts Bay Colony in the 17th century, the Puritans officially banned the celebration of Christmas. From 1659 to 1681, anyone who showed Christmas spirit, held feasts, avoided work, or sang carols faced a fine of 5 shillings. The Puritans believed that Christmas was a decadent pagan holiday without biblical justification. For them, it was a day of extravagant pleasures, not pious reflections. At that time, somewhere, a Fox News anchor probably just fainted from the news. Iceland has a law based on centuries-old tradition that defines how surnames work. It is nothing like the rest of the Western world. Instead of a family surname passed down from generation to generation, Iceland uses a system where the surname is formed from the father's or mother's name with an added ending. Icelanders use a patronymic system. A person's surname is formed from the father's name, to which son is added for a son or daughter for a daughter. If a man named Jan has a son Olafur and a daughter Sigridur, their full names would be Olafur Jansson and Sigridur Jonsdottir. In Iceland, a surname does not tell a story. It only indicates the person's father, showing his name at the end of the surname. The ancient Greek legislator Zeleucus of Luria was known for his literal and harsh code of laws. He decreed that the punishment for adultery should be the blinding of both eyes. Soon his own son was caught in this crime. Faced with the choice of either breaking the law or blinding his son, Zeleucus invented a third form of punishment. He ordered that his son lose one eye, and Zeleucus himself lost one eye, thus adhering to the letter of the law. Thus, 2 eyes were deprived of sight, demonstrating a strange and cruel form of mercy, justice, and a loophole in the law in one terrible act. In the 13th century in Wales, the laws of Hydia established the exact legal value of a cat. The kitten had a certain value in the laws, which showed the importance of animals in the legal system of that time. From birth until the kitten opened its eyes, its value was 1 penny. After that, until it caught its first mouse, it was 2 pennies. When the cat proved its mouse-catching abilities, its value sharply increased to 4 pennies, which was a significant amount at the time. If a cat guarding the village barn was killed, the punishment was much harsher. The cat's owner could be fined 1 unit from his sheep and wool. Even 800 years ago, people understood that it was better not to mess with a person associated with a cat. In the United Kingdom, it is still technically illegal to die in the Parliament building. This is not an ancient superstition, but a legislative genius based on bureaucracy. The logic, if it can be called that, is as follows. Anyone who dies within the palace walls is entitled to a state funeral. To avoid huge funeral costs for every politician or tourist, it was simply made illegal to die on Parliament grounds. How this is enforced is unknown, but it would be interesting to see how they try to control it. In the year 1696, England introduced the infamous window tax. In the past, there was a tax whose amount depended on the number of windows in a house. The government believed more windows meant a richer person. The people reacted simply. They started breaking windows to avoid the tax. As a result, houses became dark, damp, and poorly ventilated. Doctors of that time linked these conditions to the spread of diseases. The government seemed to manage to tax even fresh air. In the Aztec Empire, the laws about clothing were extremely strict. Ordinary people were strictly forbidden to wear cotton clothes. Cotton was considered a luxury and was intended only for the nobility. Commoners were supposed to wear clothing made from agave fibers. Violation of this law was punishable by death, not by a fine or public disgrace. This gives new meaning to the phrase fashion victim. In Anglo-Saxon England, there was a law called Frank Pledge, which created a system of collective police supervision. Communities were divided into groups of 10 households, called tithings. If one committed a crime, the others were obliged to report him. If a group failed to bring the culprit to court, the entire group was heavily fined. It was like a group project where one mistake caused everyone to fail. The 12 Tables of ancient Rome had one of the most brutal debt laws. If a debtor owed money to many creditors and couldn't pay, creditors could physically cut the debtor's body. Historians argue if this law was literal, but the mere suggestion is shocking. Compared to this, modern credit card threats seem friendly reminders. According to Herodotus, Egyptian pyramid builders had to eat a daily ration of garlic and onions. This was not for flavor, but for health reasons. This was the first state-sponsored wellness program designed to prevent disease among workers. Like a boss offering a salad bar, but the salad was raw garlic and onions. The job is to build a tomb for the god king. Now go back to the limestone, Steve. Soon you will have a work grade. 23. In the 13th century in Florence, a city obsessed with its public image, picnics and eating on church steps were banned. It wasn't out of respect for the holy ground. The city's elite were simply tired of seeing commoners making the place untidy. So they didn't just ask people to leave. Enjoying a sandwich in the wrong place became a punishable offense. Florence, come for the art, but get fined for sandwiches. In the ancient Greek city of Lacri, the lawmaker Zeleucus introduced a rule for those who wanted to propose a new law. It was necessary to present an idea at a public assembly with a rope around your neck. If the law was rejected, the executioner immediately strangled the proposer. The idea was to make people think very carefully before proposing changes. This is the most cruel and effective political constraint. Imagine how short congressional sessions would be under such a rule. Just imagine. You have already heard the story of King Canute, who ordered the tide to stop. It was not an act of arrogance. It was a carefully planned political spectacle. His court was full of flatterers who said he was omnipotent. Tired of lies, Canute placed his throne on the beach and ordered the tide to stop. When the waves still wet him, he turned to the court and called them idiots. He didn't just say they were wrong, he made planet Earth do it for him. That's how you win an argument. In medieval Scotland, sanitary laws were quite creative. The lack of sewage meant waste was thrown out the window. To bring some order to this chaos, the law required loudly shouting, "Water caution," a fraction of a second before throwing. It was a distorted form of warning. This law did not forbid throwing filth onto the street. It defined the legal difference between an attack and a friendly, albeit very disgusting, warning. In Old English common law, there was a troubling principle known as the rule of thumb. This informal law allowed a husband to physically punish his wife, but the law limited the degree of punishment. Yet this principle sparks much debate and condemnation today. The stick he used was no thicker than his own thumb. This grotesque measure tried to quantify and legitimize domestic violence. It chillingly shows how terrible ideas were enforced literally by a ruler. In the Belgian city of Ypres, the Festival of Cats featured a barbaric main event. The city jester threw live cats from the Bielefeld Tower to the square below to kill evil spirits. This cruel tradition stopped in 1817, replaced by the use of stuffed animals, which was a significant improvement. Yet, one wonders what other ideas were considered during those early city council meetings. Seriously, what was the alternative plan? Such barbaric customs show how far society has come in rejecting cruelty as entertainment. When Oliver Cromwell took control of England in the 17th century, he legally declared war on fun by banning all stage plays and shutting down every theater. Theater was seen as a source of immorality. This government ban was like a father unplugging a Nintendo after hearing a swear word, but on a national scale. Unlike a typical father, Cromwell was a military dictator who ruled for 18 years, controlling culture and art through strict laws. The ancient Hittite civilization had one of the strangest codes of laws ever found, contained penalties for everything. But the truly strange ones were the laws about bestiality. Sex with a horse or mule was not considered a capital crime. However, one could not appear before the king after such an act. Sex with a pig was punishable by death without exceptions. There is a very disturbing story behind this. Better not to know about it. I just won't ask any questions. Next, the 12 tables of ancient Rome, where there were special rules for funerals. The idea did not arise for safety reasons at all. It was invented by the automotive industry when cars began killing thousands of pedestrians. The auto lobby launched a large-scale PR campaign to shift the blame for accidents onto pedestrians. They organized safety parades and mocked those crossing the street in unauthorized places. Cities passed laws prohibiting pedestrians from crossing the street outside of crosswalks. A new type of crime was literally invented, and people were forced to comply with it. So, if you hesitate at the curb, remember that this is not a safety rule. You are obeying a century-old marketing campaign, not common sense. In the year 1518, in the city of Strasbourg, a woman named Frau Tropfa stepped onto the street and began to dance. She did not stop for almost a week. After a month, more than 400 people had joined the dancing plague. The authorities were baffled and turned to doctors for advice. Medical and legal advice concluded that the treatment for the fever was even more dancing. Guild halls were freed, a stage was built, and a band was invited. The sick were literally prescribed to dance the fever. This is considered the worst advice in the history of public health. In the 15th century, the Republic of Venice had a shadow intelligence agency called the Council of Ten. Their power was absolute and their methods direct. Official documents show that the council had a budget and a formal legal process for hiring assassins who used a special poison to eliminate political enemies. They contained a detailed price list for poisoning various officials, from a Turkish general to the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. It was a state-sponsored assassination for hire, with detailed receipts and official contracts with the government. In ancient Rome, wearing purple was a dangerous game, especially the shade of Tyrian purple, which was allowed only for the emperor. This dye was extremely expensive, extracted from thousands of small sea snails, and symbolized supreme power. Senators could wear a stripe of this color, but a fully purple toga meant either the emperor or death. Imagine that you are so powerful that you possess a color, not a brand or logo, but a real color. This is not just a style. It is a statement expressing supreme power and status. In ancient Athens, there was a brilliantly paranoid democratic process called ostracism. Once a year, citizens could vote to exile any politician for 10 years without trial, charges, or evidence. It was enough to be unpopular, too influential, or simply annoying to be exiled. In ancient Greece, there was a tradition of throwing the name of one's most disliked person onto a piece of broken pottery called an ostracon. If a person received 6,000 votes, they were exiled. This was the world's first unfriend button, except pressing it meant 10 years of banishment. Imagine a social network that punishes with exile. In medieval England, in the 13th century, a law known as the Assize of Arms required all men from 15 to 60 to own and train with a longbow. In this light, even jurors seem like less burdensome duties. The law required not to miss training and to be ready to defend the homeland. In the 17th century, in colonial America, Puritans strictly observed church etiquette. Several colonies banned chewing tobacco in church. What is interesting is not the ban itself, but the loophole. It was often allowed to chew tobacco during the service if one did not spit on the floor. Some churches even set up special places for smoking or chewing tobacco to maintain cleanliness and order in the temple. Thus, the Puritans combined strictness with practicality, maintaining discipline and respect for church rules. Even people who banned Christmas understood that one cannot take away a person's vices. In the year 1516, Bavaria passed the Reinheitsgebot, the German beer purity law. This law is often called the oldest consumer protection law. But it hid a genius. The ban on using wheat and rye preserved these grains for bread making. Thanks to this law, food crises were prevented. The Germans solved the potential hunger problem by adopting a beer law that became not just a rule, but a sacred contract between the people and their food. The harsh English maritime law, known as the Wreck Law, stated that if a ship wrecked on the shore and all died, the cargo passed to the local landowner or the crown. However, if at least one person, or even a cat or dog, survived and reached the shore, then the owner of the cargo could reclaim their property. This law created a grim incentive for coastal residents. It was more profitable for them not to save people in order to obtain the cargo. In history, some laws were oddly specific and strange. For example, a law made every shipwreck a life or death game show for those who survived. In Tudor England, under King Henry VIII, the government regulated the size of men's codpieces, the padded part of their clothing. Parliament debated how much stuffing could be used in codpieces as they were a symbol of status, not just modesty or fashion. The codpiece was like a 16th century version of a man showing off pictures of a Lamborghini he did not own. In Vermont, an old, strange law made it illegal for spouses to whisper to each other in bed. The reason for this law is lost to history, making it all the more intriguing and strange. What could have been so dangerous about pillow talk that it needed legal intervention? Possibly a conspiracy whispered in the dark. In the Philippines, there exists a law that effectively criminalizes gossiping under the revised penal code. Spreading rumors or unverified stories that damage someone's reputation is a punishable crime. The local nickname for a gossip is Amorites. This law is essentially the government's official anti-Amorites weapon. It might be the only country where spilling the tea can lead to a trial. Under ancient Scottish law, there was a special criminal offense called clam hew. It applied if a blow was so strong it caused bleeding, but without a weapon. A simple punch that tore the skin was considered a clam. The offender was fined depending on their social status. The higher the rank, the larger the fine. This legal system essentially says, we know people will fight, so at least let's formalize it on paper in advance. In Wisconsin, the American dairy capital, there are surprisingly strict laws about butter. It is forbidden to serve butter substitutes, such as margarine, without a special request from the customer. Moreover, all butter sold and served must be quality checked by an official state-licensed butter taster. Imagine a job where your sole task is to assess the quality of butter. Such a job exists and is a serious profession in Wisconsin. The professional duty to judge the quality of butter is more than a career. It is a true calling, demanding expertise and passion beyond the ordinary expectations. The bounty plan was initially successful, reducing the cobra population significantly and encouraging citizens to catch and kill the snakes for rewards. However, some enterprising people began breeding cobras just to kill them and claim the bounty, exploiting the government's reward system. When officials discovered the scam, they canceled the bounty program. Breeders, left with thousands of venomous snakes, released them into the wild. The cobra population in Delhi grew even larger than before, illustrating the unintended consequences now called the cobra effect. The Cobra effect describes situations where a proposed solution actually makes the original problem much worse, often exponentially increasing its scale. For over 900 years, the English town of Dunmow has maintained a tradition known as the Dunmow Flitch. This custom allows a married couple to stand trial, proving they have lived in perfect harmony for 1 year and 1 day, without any arguments or regrets. If the couple convinces the jury, they are paraded through the streets and awarded a flitch, which is a giant side of bacon. The tradition of eating bacon is wonderful and at the same time very English. The main reward for family happiness is pork. It is a symbol of comfort and well-being at home. Since the time of Napoleon Bonaparte, there has been a law in France prohibiting naming a pig Napoleon. This protects the emperor's honor from associations with the animal. Although the law is not enforced, it has not been officially repealed. This means that in the dusty legal codes of France, the reputation of the pig remains a matter of national security. For many centuries, English law included the mortmain principle, which literally means dead hand. It prevented the transfer of land to corporations after death. The concern was that corporations, which do not die, would lock up land forever, not returning it to the market and not paying taxes to the king. Even the dead could not refrain from owning land. We reviewed 49 points, only one remains. Before the finale, time for the final verdict. In our opinion, the main prize goes to the most incredible law from today's list is the German trial by combat. Why? Because it is the only legal proceeding in history that sounds like a script from Wile E. Coyote. A man in a pit, a woman waving a sack of stones. This is pure madness in the legislative process. Do you agree with our verdict? Or does another law deserve this dubious fame? Write in the comments what you think. And now, our final entry, number 50. The 12 Tables of Ancient Rome not only regulated debts and funerals, they also feared poetry. The law stated that if someone wrote a satirical or defamatory poem about another citizen, called Carmen Famosum, the punishment was death. For a malicious limerick, one could be beaten to death with clubs. This was the highest form of cultural cancellation. Society feared offensive satire so much that it made it a crime with the highest penalty. This proves that throughout history, the pen has been mightier and more dangerous than the sword. Here are 50 more reasons why human logic has always been evolving. But now it's your turn. Proceed to read the comments and choose the most barbaric and idiotic law from this list. Try to defend it no matter what. Let's see how smart you are. Make the best argument in defense of this indefensible law. Show your skill in justifying the absurd. It will be interesting to see how inventive you are. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos and discussions. Your opinion is very important.